Hello YouTubers and welcome to another episode of the vlogs. As you can see, we've got a lot of people here today to experience the glass behind me here, but hopefully we can get on the water and it doesn't kick up too much. Today we're talking about tapering for trials. We're talking about, do you stop training before a big race? With trials coming up this weekend, we're changing how we train just so our energy is up for the weekend. But first things first, we're going to go get changed, we're going to go get warmed up, and we're going to get on that water before this glass here disappears. So let's get to it. We've made it off the water in the learn to row pair, still learning to row, a little bit of bursts, a little bit of starts, a little bit of paddling. But now we're going to fuel up, because remember, food is fuel, and then we'll talk a little bit about the taper, whether you should do it, whether we should do it, whether a person should do it, whether you shouldn't do it. But the boats are very busy, or the water's very busy. Boats are coming off the water now. But let's go fuel up, are you? And we've made it into the crew room. As you can see, we've got some breaded egg toast. Oh yeah, but unfortunately, it's not mine. One of the athletes here at the club took a toaster, a microwave, an oven, and pots and pans to make the breaded egg toast here at Dorney Lake today. So it's all plugged in the room, next room over, just slaving away over that stove, getting that breaded egg toast made for breakfast, because that is how good breaded egg toast is for fuel. But today, for my breakfast, I've got some balls of tin foil, absolutely fantastic, fueling up after the session. But we're going to talk about tapering after we've fueled up a little bit. So let's get to it. And we've made it outside of the crew room, we've fueled up. Ed, how was your fueling up session?
Same as every day.
Absolutely fantastic. But we're talking about tapering. Should you do it? Should you not do it? Why you might do it? Etc. So tapering, what is tapering to you, Ed?
It should be in maybe a little bit of training before you do a race where you decrease the mileage but potentially increase the intensity of a few pieces to try and replenish the stuff that you've taken out of yourself when you've been training hard.
And so how does it feel when you're tapering? How do you want it to feel?
Well, you want to feel like the training is quite easy, and then in terms of the volume, but then there should be a few harder pieces interspersed just to sort of keep the legs firing and getting race sort of ready. When
I've done a taper, I always remember one at high school. We did a taper and it was they called it Hell Week. So the week before you would just do an outrageous amount of mileage, and then the week after you would really come down, and then on that week you would just start to be I gotta go. But you obviously don't want that to last too long because it fades off.
Yeah.
So you don't want to have it the week before, and then have an entire week of jittery, and then by the time you actually get to race.
Well, yeah, and also for us, we don't really race that often. But for people who do race a lot, if you're tapering a big taper for a race and you race every couple of weeks, you're not going to get enough training in. So some people, if it's a 500 meter whatever a getter, you don't really need to taper for that. I think the only really races that you really need to taper for are big events, 2Ks, whatever, Henley,
whatever,
Stuff like
big, the ones you want to prioritize.
Exactly.
Because you don't want to, like, you can only peak so many times in a year. So you don't want to go taper down, peak for something, and then train, and then try and peak again and not be able to. That happened a lot when I was at uni, when we had the national championships, and then we had Henley like 3 weeks later. A lot of universities would race at national championships and be at an outrageous speed, come over for Henley, do probably the plate or the grand, and then not reach that same speed because peaking twice in a year is difficult, but peaking twice in a year and only like 3 weeks apart is very, very difficult,
really hard.
That's probably a whole nother video of the speeds of eights, uni rowing versus not uni rowing. But the tapering is real this week. We've taken down the mileage, so most of these days for this week are 2 sessions rather than 3. And sometimes depending on your program, weights can be cut out because that's like an easier thing to cut out. It reduces, takes a session off, and doesn't really impact the mileage as well. Yeah. And then you fire up the intensity, take maybe a few K off each session, but not a physiologist, so I'd recommend talking to your coach about that. And then obviously setting the priorities to see what you want to do, what race you want to peak for, if any at all. But that will be it. Rich, hello. Here's Mr. Jimmy. Tapering. What is tapering to you?
Getting ready for a race, taking the volume down, intensity up, getting race sharp.
That's another thing. It's not just about the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's about
getting ready for what you want to do, getting the body ready for going flat out.
Yeah. Body guessing.
Like making it used to what you're doing, and also not just the intensity, but the technique as well. But that's it for today's little chat with the lads. Now it's time to go back on the water for some pieces in the pair. This will be as we progress through the taper, the pieces are getting shorter, so these are the longest pieces we'll do until trials on the weekend. So let's get to it all you. back onto the dock after some interesting piecing there on the water, doing some race pace stuff in prep for trials, and then we had to do an interesting manoeuvre as there was a small gathering of boats in one of the lanes. We had to weave round and then keep going. It was good to deal with the commotion during race pace to see if we can actually do it in a race when the pressure is very high. But now it's time to go fuel up, because remember, food is fuel.
I know.
And we have made it into the crew room for lunch for fueling up. Absolutely fantastic. After the session in the pier, giving it some yum. We've got a lovely special guest here today, Jack Beaumont. Jack, how are you today? Oh yeah! We've got other lads here too, like Mr. Ollie as well. But as always, after the session, you have to fuel up, because remember, food is fuel. And then we'll see what else we're up to for the rest of the day. Oh yeah! And we have made it out of the club for another day after some lovely sort of Thai green curry type of dish. But as you can see behind me, all the stuff getting put there in the car park for getting all the tents and all that ready for Henley Royal Regatta. I want to try and reach out to some of the people at, or that own the regatta, that put on the regatta, to see if we can go on a little tour once the buildings are up. That'd be pretty interesting, but that's a month or so, maybe a couple months away and for the future. But now we have to enjoy the taper some more. So we've got it's only a couple of sessions a day, and they are shorter, so we have more time after said sessions to do other things like have a nap, which obviously very privileged to do, very exciting to have a nap in the afternoon, maybe have a haircut as well at some point. But that will be it for today's episode of Yam Squad. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and as always, remember to subscribe if you haven't already, hit that like button, and have a good one.